everybody, welcome back to the Live Room Podcast, filmed live on location here at Lad Studios in beautiful, sunny Bendigo, Victoria, Australia. Not really. My name is Eric. I'm one of your hosts here, joined by my good friend Jackson.
Hey.
Tyler, and who's this? Who have you brought along?
We do have an extra here today. This is the lovely and fantastic Jason Morrison. He's a very dear friend of mine. Welcome.
Thanks for having me, everyone.
First guest on the show.
Yeah.
Yes.
You're in the history books.
Great.
The
I get my
honor.
little Polaroid on the wall behind the door.
That's not a bad idea.
We should do that,
Yeah.
actually.
Do you have a Polaroid?
No. Oh, I do,
Oh.
but I don't know where it is.
Oh, okay.
So it doesn't count.
Just sign the door or something.
I've got a Polaroid from an eating challenge I did a couple of years ago that I can send up and put on there.
Done.
What did you eat? What did you eat?
There's a place in Melbourne called Massive Wieners, and
Great name.
very, very apt name. And I think it's a meter-long hot dog.
Okay.
and
So
you
it's
have-
a 3.5 foot hot dog.
Yeah, it's about that. Or maybe it's 3-foot hot dog.
Right.
Like, you know.
So it's just an average day for all of us, right?
Yeah, pretty much.
It's a pretty big wiener.
But you've got to do it in less than 5 minutes.
Oh, really?
Wow,
Whoa.
that's the challenge.
That's the challenge. And if you do it under that, then you get your name on one side of the room. And if you don't, you get your name on the shame. And then there's like a did not finish corner near the toilets that you kind of...
Really? So where did you play? Did you win?
I've done it twice now.
Okay.
And the first time I did, I think it was 3 minutes flat. And the second time was 4 minutes 60. Oh, 4 minutes 60, that's 5 minutes. 4 minutes 30, like it was
Yeah.
pushing 4
You
minutes.
paced
Wow.
yourself like a champ, though.
3
that
minutes
second time.
straight.
Wow.
It was 3 minutes, 0 seconds and 0.26 or something.
Wow.
So that's in the top like 5 people at that point that had done it. So I felt
Goodness
very...
gracious.
Have you guys ever done any eating challenges? Like anything comparable?
I tried to do the Yardbird burger once, like the Yardbird's the American restaurant in town, and they have like a gigantic burger there where they pile every option of meat in this burger.
Wow.
Like a plate full of fries and like I think it was like a pint of like root beer at the time.
Oh, yeah. Good choice.
And it used to be you have an hour to complete. I'm like, I could do this in an hour, right? But they changed it to half an hour. Very shortly before we went there as a group.
Oh,
And I did the stupid thing. I ate everything but the bread. I had the bread last. I'm like, I can't fit this in.
oh man, that's tough.
That's what gets you.
Yeah.
Jackson, anything?
No. That's not for me, man. Like, look at my frame, look at my build. It's not happening. I can't stomach
It's
that.
genuinely not about the frame though.
I could maybe do spicy stuff,
I
but
can't handle spicy stuff. Like the American thing is like hot wings, or where I grew up where I went to high school in Pottsville, Pennsylvania, home of America's oldest brewery, Yingling. It's good.
Oh.
It's decent beer. The name doesn't make any sense. Doesn't matter.
Yingling.
Yes. There is a bar. It's like a bar and grill, like a sports bar called the Stadium Bar, and they have like suicide wings and attempted suicide wings.
Oh, God.
So it's I don't know what the fascination is with like the hottest wings that will just make you just immediately look like you've taken a shower.
Pretty much.
I can't do it. I can't do
We
it.
went to the flight bar for lunch today with a friend just around the corner and talking to a guy there who I know, and he was going through all the sauces that they make and
Oh man.
the like not only the 24-hour challenge, but I could let you just think it like they just make that as hot as how nice you are to them when you go in.
Yeah.
So I don't know if I'm ruining any trade secrets, but he said they had this guy who came in who was just really arrogant about,
Yeah.
I can do the 24-hour hot wings and they're just like,
yeah,
A kilo of ghost peppers in there.
he
like-
like,
Oh dude.
he said this guy couldn't finish it. He was this guy and his girlfriend, and he didn't realize the girlfriend was the +1.
Oh no.
The girlfriend took a bite and then just sat there in silence for the whole time. And the guy get halfway through and just was sweating and crying. And
straight to Scoville City.
yeah.
It's not a pretty place.
Population one more than whatever the normal population is.
So it pays to be nice, people. Always.
Always does. mate.
Always put your best smile on.
Yeah,
My
exactly
voice
right.
just cracked. Speaking of voice cracking, fun fact: this is my brother's sweatshirt.
Wait, you have a brother?
Yes, did you not know that?
I had no idea.
Really?
No.
I've told you this
No.
before.
News to me.
Really?
Wow.
Okay. Well, there you go.
What's his name?
Richard. My brother is 10 years younger than I am. So there's a big age difference. But my mother and my brother visited me from the U.S. and flew over here. And my brother left his sweatshirt here. So
sponsor of the podcast.
sponsored by Fruit of the Loom. This sweatshirt's from Walmart. So this is OG USA.
Oh, mate.
My underwear's from Walmart as well.
Is it
So-
really?
Shout out to Richard.
Very nice. So you've been to the States then?
Yeah, several times.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where have you been?
I've done 3 tours over there
Yeah.
now. The first one was Warped Tour back in 2015.
Warp Tour. So you're
is
familiar with Warp
fantastic.
Tour. Very good.
Familiar. and then 2 separate club tours since then. So, yeah, there was this incident on the last tour where someone stole all my washing out of the hotel laundry. So I had to go to Walmart and restock. So almost all of my underwear is Walmart underwear and Walmart singlets. So
that's great.
They've held up for the last.
It's like their Kmart, right? Like
no. Kmart
It's
is Kmart over in the States, but Kmart sucks big time. Like you guys are so lucky here with how well Kmart is branded and marketed and everything. Like really great quality stuff.
I love it.
Kind of.
Everything is $4.
But you go over you go over to Walmart, Kmart at home,
voucher.
and everything is it's in shambles. It's terrible. Honestly, you guys would be shocked.
It's what Kmart used to be like probably 5 years ago.
Yeah, but then they
rebranded and did the smartest thing they've ever done.
I know.
Make it perfect for uni students and white girls everywhere.
Yep.
Yeah,
that's exactly
and
it.
me.
Yeah, and me too.
So you've been to the States. Have you been to New York State?
I have, yeah. I've spent a bit of time in New York State. After one of the tours, I had a bit of a holiday, hired a car and drove from New York to Boston up to Rochester, Toronto, and then back down again. So spent a bit of time. I then came back through Pennsylvania.
So I was born in Pennsylvania, but I like to say I'm from New York State now. So
would that be like?
So if you were
born in Bendigo, but I'm actually from Melbourne. When you're talking to people from other parts of the
pretty much. So when you drove, you would have taken Interstate 81 north.
I can't remember exactly.
So did you?
I started in Boston and then went up to like Albany, Rochester, up that way. So
okay, yeah. So
and came back down from Albany, then down to Scranton, and then across. Back up to.
Yeah. Well, that makes sense. You guys have no idea, but that's.
I've heard you mention Scranton before.
Scranton. Have you guys watched The Office?
Yeah, that's probably where I've heard it. Probably where I've heard it.
That's where you've heard it.
I thought it was a made-up name this whole time.
No way.
Scranton.
I actually drove past the outside spot. I haven't really not a big Office watcher, but I drove past and went,
"Oh, cool."
And then kept going. It was just pretty much that.
It just looks like an office building.
That's it. Yeah, that's what it is. So we've got Jason with us today.
We sure do.
Now, Jason has said a phrase that you guys might have picked on as listeners, like, I've been on a couple tours, I've done a couple tours. So as our first guest, we thought it would be interesting to bring in somebody who is like a part of the industry, like maybe a part of the industry that a lot of people don't know about. So let's give some background to tell us about you, what you do, and I'm actually really keen to hear more about you because I don't know anything.
So what about your background? Like, obviously you grew up in Bendigo and stuff like that.
Well, I moved to Bendigo for university originally.
Oh, right. Okay.
And that was 2004, I think it was, start of 2004. Failed my way through a whole lot of classes there and had always sort of dabbled in guitar and played a bunch sort of during high school and whatnot, and started going to gigs more regularly here because before that, I lived down near Phillip Island, and there was there was nothing. There was really no youth music scene, or for being. I think I went to our local football club's music night once and got up and did a song with a friend of mine. Like that's the most that I'd done as a kid.
Yep.
But started going to gigs, started doing my own gigs, started playing acoustic, singer-songwriter type stuff, and just throughout that process, started booking some shows, started meeting some other bands and some local musicians, and if there wasn't, I wanted to play a gig, so I just booked my own at the venue or at a space, and then get friends to play, and just really organically because it's the easiest way to do it.
Absolutely,
100%, yeah.
And then out of that, people were like, can you drive us? We got a gig in Shepparton. Can you drive us there? Because I was a little bit older, had a wagon, so I put gear and whatnot.
Yeah,
and that's really the start of where I'm at now. Is just doing that for these younger bands who wanted someone to drive them there and say, all right, we'll meet at 6 o'clock and we'll go there and take this long and X, Y, Z. The very first tour I went on, another friend said, hey, can you drive our band? We're going up to Brisbane. And on that tour, I met a tour manager who was like, yeah, you can get paid for doing what you're doing. That wasn't the exact conversation, but that was the
crux of it.
The crux of it. We're sitting at a house party and he's showing me the stuff that he's doing. And I'm like, what? I'm just charging for petrol and maybe a Big Mac. Like I could actually be doing this as a career.
For sure.
And that kind of was a real pivotal moment. And what was that, 2009? And nearly 10 years later, I'm kind of been continuing on that path for the last little while. Yeah.
That's great. It's a really cool insight. I'm really excited to hear about everything you've done. It's like,
Big fan.
I'm really interested because like a lot of people just think that if you're a musician, you just get to where you're going, like sky high, like top 40, or you just end up playing local clubs.
Yep.
There is a point where you do build from point A to point B and even get to point Z or Z, being like that, well-traveled musician. And you're one of the guys that helps people get there.
Yep.
Or people use you to,
Like a catalyst, like really gets it from point A to point B as a musician in a career. Like,
Yeah.
that's
Absolutely.
cool. That's awesome.
That's how I describe you to these guys when we originally had like talking to you about getting on here as a guest. I'm like, the best way to describe him is he's like a tour dad.
Yep.
He's like the dad to all these bands that he drives around and imparts his wisdom into them and stuff like that and teaches them the ropes.
Wisdom
and
is
stuff.
a very loose term.
Come on, mate.
Very loose
You've
term.
got some secrets in that beard, I swear.
Yeah, it's probably the best to explain it to someone who's not even in the industry. Say if you meet someone at a family function, or I met the girl I've been dating. I met her parents on last weekend and had to kind of explain a little bit about what I do other than work in music. Because if you work in music, you're either a musician or you're a manager.
Yeah.
That's pretty much it. And a manager encompasses like if you're a booking agent or if you are a manager or a label, like anything of that, they just think, oh, you manage the band or you're in the band. There's kind of, it's, the parent role is very, very apt because you're in the same way as when you're 14 and don't want to do anything. You just want to do whatever it is you want to do, and you've got to have someone to corral everybody and make it happen and make it financially happen and make it physically happen.
Yeah.
That's kind of my day-to-day. And most of the time it's pretty straightforward because everyone has the same goal and the same end game. They want to play the show. They want it to have a great time. They want to be able to do things along the way. But when those individual goals aren't at the same spot, that's when you're going to have an interesting time to...
Yeah. It'd be pretty rare for it to all kind of line up how you see it, wouldn't it be?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
And it comes with how professional each act is and how long they've been doing it and their own dynamic.
Yeah.
So every band dynamic's different. Sometimes there was one band I work with and they're all a little bit older, same sort of age as myself. And they're like, we'll get up in the morning, just want to have coffee and breakfast somewhere. We get there, we go and sound check, then we go and find food. Like we've toured before, we've done all this. We don't have to, we're not about the bright lights. We've kind of done it. We're doing solid numbers. Whereas in some other bands, it's like, let's do everything. Like, we're going to stop here and you're like, physically can't do any of that. We've got to drive. So it's managing expectations, which I think is the biggest part of any job like this. It's managing what the person expects at the end so that you're going to run into less situations that you have to deal with.
It makes sense. You know what I mean? Like, we've all been in bands, and we've been in bands where we have certain goals, and then those goals don't pan out because there's, for lack of a better term, personality differences. You may get along, but your goals aren't the same.
Yeah.
Like in my high school band, we mentioned this in episode 3 because
we can reference.
We
do that sometimes.
How I mentioned, like, I was in a band and we drove 10 hours to Jackson, Michigan, and we played this big festival. And then after that, the rest of the guys in the band were like, I don't want to do this anymore. I'm like, we are that close to possibly getting a record deal or getting a tour deal. Why would you stop now? But it's like a different time in life where, younger kids don't have their priorities straight. Yeah. Whereas, like, as you were saying before, if it were me now, if I were going on tour, I would do just that. Like, if all 3 of us were going on tour, I'd get up, have a coffee, sound check, wander around. That's all it is. You know what I mean? Like, people shouldn't have those expectations. Like, there's going to be bright lights and everything because there's a lot of hard yards that you got to do.
Yeah.
And it's cool because you know that.
Yep.
You know that. You're a part of that. So it's a really interesting process. So, like, what kind of bands have you worked with? Like, I have absolutely no idea of your repertoire or like who you work with. So if you could
Is it
name
more in
names.
like the metal scene, or you branch out in different genres, or like where's your angle?
As a general thing, it tends to be heavier bands, mostly because they tour. They tour on the road more. That's partially because gear wise, they tend to be a bit more specific with gear. And so it's easy to have a van and trailer full of gear, so you've got the same every night. Whereas, if you're in a 4-piece rock band that could just have, a couple of Fender Twins and a, little small bass amp and a 4-piece kit that's kind of not really specific. It's like, sweet, you can just call up the backline company and it'll be there at the venue. Whereas if you've got like a nice big like double kick and like, 10-piece kit and you've got this specific rig, then
Pedal boards, everything like that.
Yeah.
all that, So that's part of it. And a lot of the bands that I started working with were smaller, so there wasn't the budget to fly. Even though flying is quite a cheap part of the touring process here in Australia, still you've got to have that money to buy the flights and then all of the process. Sometimes it's just easy, fill up the tank and go. So
That's it, yeah.
Do you find like your industry at the moment, like there's been a lot of Facebook videos out there of like airlines mistreating guitar cases and all that kind of stuff, and it's just heartbreaking to look at. It really is. Like there'll be like a Rickenbacker. Sorry to bring this up.
Yes, this actually happened.
Yeah.
I've got a 40-year-old Rickenbacker bass. I don't know how familiar you are with it.
Yep.
So it's a Rickenbacker 4001. It is my pride and joy. And I flew it over here because when I moved from the US to here, I wanted to bring everything with me. So it's up there now. But
up there in heaven or up there in the cupboard?
it's up there on top of the vocal
Oh,
booth
okay.
it's not in heaven yet. But like just seeing them loaded into the plane, just knowing the value of this instrument and the sentimental value that I have in this instrument, and like finally unboxing it after I get back to where I'm going, which is here, seeing the nameplate popped off with the screws like unthreaded from the headstock, like it was enough to make me cry. You know what I mean? So how do you deal with that? Like there's obviously, I don't know if people have insurance policies on their instruments or anything like that, but it's a cheaper way to fly. Yeah. But how do you treat the gear?
Yeah. As a general thing, I've been really lucky with the acts that I've worked with in terms of damage to gear. Sometimes there's been a little bit, but it's nothing that's been a showstopper or nothing that's more than cosmetic or case damage. So maybe there's a part of the case, like a handle might have broken or something that's relatively minor. The biggest one that I've ever had was last year. The band was flying for a show in Perth. And so I was dropped. There's 2 bands flying from Sydney to Perth, but the way the flights were booked, they went from Sydney to Melbourne, Melbourne to Perth. Pretty common thing happens, right?
Yeah.
So we got to the airport on the Sunday morning, I think it was, and it just so happens as we pulled up in the van with our 2 bands and all of our gear, there was another band who had just pulled up at the same time.
Oh no.
And then, another 2 bands, and then there was a 3rd band that came in behind us. So everyone must have played in Sydney that night, and us, the 2 bands I was working with, and the 2 bands, one of which I was a friend of, and was a friend of the other. I was friends with everyone. Anyway, we just beat them in front in the line, which was really nice. But the gear was sent from Sydney to Melbourne, and then it wasn't put on the flight from Melbourne to Perth.
Oh no.
So the band get there and there's no gear. Long story short, the plane from Melbourne to Perth was, I've forgotten the plane size, but usually it's the 737, which has got the 3 seats and 3 seats, and it's got plenty of space. But sometimes the Perth flight is the smaller plane, so they can only take 1 big piece per. So they left it there. And then 3 o'clock flight out of Melbourne was cancelled. So the gear didn't get to Perth until 10:30, rushed straight to the venue, and the band was supposed to go on at 10:50. So the support band had to use all of the gear of the local supports, and the headline band pushed their set back 40 minutes. So it got there, they were able to set up. And and it just, the other thing about that screwed everything over was it was rugby league finals time. And I'm really not a fan of rugby league to start with, but the North Queensland Cowboys were taking up 2 bays with all of their team and support staff, loading all of their gear in to go to North Queensland, back to wherever they're from, and held us up, which meant that's why the gear missed the first flight in the first place. And there's just this whole row of things. So I'm sitting in a hotel room in Sydney before I drive the back line back to Melbourne, trying to manage with the venue, with the band, with the airline, like the guitar tech and I just on the phone, like trying to sort this all out. And it's like, I can't be there to fix it. It's just that's the most stressful side of things.
And that's a day in the life of, hey?
Yeah, I'm just getting PTSD thinking about
goodness,
sitting in my underwear in this hotel bed after, like, it had just been a really intense tour. We'd had the one of the guys put petrol in a diesel vehicle.
Oh no.
That's always fun.
And then we had where the trailer axle broke later in that tour. it was just this one where everything had kind of gone wrong. Everything happened and the shows were still great, but at the end of it, I'm locking my door. I'm hiding in a black room for 3 or 4 days, turning off my phone, and you come out like a caterpillar, like a beautiful butterfly at the end. Once you've kind of shed all of the
That'd be
rubbish.
the best feeling, wouldn't it?
Oh, just walking out of your house to get a coffee and being like, I don't have to worry about that tour ever again.
Yeah.
And you just kind of walk out into the sunshine and
Fly away.
fly away.
Yeah. That's exactly it. Carry on. I've just got to reset the camera here. So any other questions you guys have?
That is fascinating, though. It's that the premise of the show must go on. Like that's, and you've clearly, like, you've had the experience of being on the road for so long. You know what the major priorities are. Everything else is secondary, basically. So, and for younger bands that don't really know what they're doing, maybe it's their first tour or they're just not as experienced with like flying, for example. Maybe they've only driven everywhere.
Yeah.
Having somebody to show them the ropes, it's pretty damn beneficial.
But even in the driving, it's just, I'm so familiar with the Australian roads that it's like, okay, I know that if we're playing in Sydney tomorrow night, we'd leave Melbourne at 6 a.m. I know where to stop on the road. Okay, we'll stop at this servo, this servo, this servo, get lunch here.
Got it all. Yeah.
I know that if we're going to hit Sydney at 3 o'clock in the afternoon for a 4 o'clock sound check, it's going to take us an hour to get from the airport to the venue because Sydney's a place that I'm really glad that global warming exists because the water will rise and wash Sydney away and everyone will be happy. And then you'll make it whereas younger bands like, oh yeah, we know it takes 8 hours according to Google Maps. So you leave at 9 o'clock to get there at whatever the maths is and you go, oh, we're late. Because, hang on a second. Like my loose formula is for every 3 hours you drive, half an hour of stop.
Yeah.
And then that's for 5 people. And then an extra 10 minutes on top of that for every extra person.
Yeah.
And it's kind of, it's become pretty accurate when, you're taking a group of people somewhere. Yeah. Anyway, I don't know how interesting that stuff is, but
No, very
I'm
interesting.
just kind of in a role. My brain's just pouring out
To
of
me, that's like a cheat sheet. That's like,
I've got to write this
That's actually
down.
pretty cool.
Like,
even if you're just doing it with a group of friends, say you're driving to Adelaide for the weekend, you go, okay, well, it's 690 Ks to Adelaide. So you'd say that's 7 hours. So you'd stop 3 times,
8.5 hour trip.
add an extra hour and a half. Yeah. And then depending if you want to stop at the big koala on the way, so you make it 9 hours and you've got a bit of change. And then the time goes back half an hour, so you get an extra hour, so you can still leave it. Yeah, anyway, I'm just kind of rambling now.
No, but
all the
it
processes.
makes total sense though, because like the one big thing that you probably do that a lot of people don't think of is you're a time manager. If you're trying to get fans to the venue on time, you need to leave at a certain time. And having done this for over close to 10 years,
Close
right?
to 10 years, yeah.
You know everything, how to get there and how to get from point A to point B. One thing I'm really interested in is the flying aspect. How many bands do you have that actually fly? Is it a quite common thing for people to fly, or is it literally just it just depends?
In Australia, it's very common.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's just legs. Obviously, from East Coast to Perth is an obvious fly. I've had a few bands contest that, but that's a whole other kind of mental conversation that I'm just like, no.
Let's just bypass that. All right.
Yeah. So it's kind of like I have to sit and go, okay, so if Australia is America and LA is Perth, then Adelaide is about New Orleans and Melbourne, or, that is probably not quite Orlando, but just in a bit, like a couple of hours in.
Florida, yeah.
And so they just go, and then there's nothing from New Orleans or Atlanta to LA. And they go, yeah, but we can drive that. We drive that at home. It's like, no. There's nothing between that. You've got city every, 4 hours if you're going across from west to east in the States. But here it's like,
Nothing.
what have you got? You've got a golf course that runs alongside of a highway, and you've got emus that you can hit and kill. You get killed.
Kangaroos, like,
It's a liability.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
So yeah, that leg. But then also, if you're doing a smaller tour where maybe the dates are a bit closer, say Brisbane, Sydney, Melbourne run, and you find a lot of indie bands and a lot of rock bands that will come out for festivals, or on more kind of slimlined runs, they'll just fly. It's like, why bother sitting in a car for 9 hours? If you've got to do that twice in a row, just spend the extra little bit and fly, particularly if you're selling, 500 to 1,000 tickets a night for your own mental health and physical. Absolutely worth it.
Yeah, there you go. So you've obviously got a bit of knowledge in that noggin of yours from your experience on the road.
I've got a little bit.
I've
still got a lot to learn. I still
of
kind of look
course.
at more experienced guys and just be like, how did you figure that out? How do you, like problem solving. You go, how did earth are you dealing with that? And like any situation, if you're in a studio and you kind of watch somebody else, how on earth did you make that happen? You're like,
It's problem solving under mass pressure. Like, working in the moment, keeping calm, cool, all that.
It's one of the things.
Not everyone can do it. Like,
one of the things I've admired about you the most is you're kind of a student of the game. You're always striving for knowledge in that area. But what made you decide that this was the right time to announce your business, Reverse K?
oh yeah. So, sorry for the click. It's been something that's kind of brewing for ages. I had back when I first started, probably 2008. I went under the name of Athens Co. Just picked a name, and that was all well and good. Just so I could book some shows, and I was sort of managing a band, very, very loose managing a band.
Yeah.
So it just kind of, I just needed a name to go under, and it never really was anything. It just was a thing I'd put on my invoices, and it would be my email address. And so it kind of got to end of last year, and there's a project that I was looking at starting with a friend of mine, and just needed to have a real email address. It was always just athensco@live.com.au.
Yeah.
Which kind of isn't, well, it's perfectly fine. It's not as professional as what I wanted to be.
Yeah.
And so I spent some time and did the whole back end, built a website, all that stuff to kind of host everything. And in the end, that project didn't eventuate, but it was the catalyst I needed to be able to set up Reverse K as the business and be able to then follow some things I've been sitting on for ages that I wanted to do. And, here we are. And it's kind of been really cool. People are like, oh, Reverse K, you've started your own business. I'm like, well, not a lot's changed from the other side of things other than now that I've given it a profile. And
Exactly.
a profile, it's not just, hey, I'm Jason. I do all of this tour, driving, merch stuff. This is the business. And then I can kind of hide behind that a little bit more.
Yeah.
So it's nice in that sense.
So it's kind of like taking a back seat in a way. You're still doing everything, but you're not Athens Co. You're Jason who owns Reverse K.
Yeah.
Where did the name come from?
It's actually a baseball reference.
Okay.
And I think I might get this backwards.
Yeah?
No pun
Reverse?
intended. But it's when you strike out. If you do the baseball scoring, you might be able to correct me if I'm wrong. But when you do the baseball scoring, strike out is a K. And so if you strike out without offering a shot, we're talking cricket terms now, then that's a backwards K.
Yep.
And I just really like that. And I just there's no real meaning behind it. I just like that. And when my friends you need a domain, and I was like, well, every other domain I had is already taken, and I just wanted a .com. And I was like, well, that's cool, and let's just go with that. And
It's a memorable looking and sounding name, so you've done well with it.
It is, yeah. That's the most important thing. Like I've learned with everything I've done, it's got to have some sort of name. It's got to have some sort of brand, and it can't be about you. Like it can be about you, but putting your face on it might not actually be a good thing.
Yep.
If I respond to emails through Lad Studios, it's we
Yes.
do this, even though if it's just singularly me doing all the recording.
Yeah.
Even though if it's just you singularly doing everything.
Yep.
We blah blah blah. It's not about you. It's how you can help people.
Yes.
And having that brand associated with you. Similar to Live Room Podcast. We've got a brand, blah, blah, it's us, filmed here, but it's us talking about stuff that we like. So it's a typical business term. You need to have that. And it's a really smart way to approach it, especially if that's the kind of service you're offering to musicians and artists and all that stuff. So,
And I'd really like to make it bigger. I remember hearing something a couple of years ago, and they were talking about the people who are the personality, or the people who are the brand, versus the business who is the brand.
Yeah.
And you look at someone, say, a Molly Meldrum, who's gone through his life as a journalist and a music critic, and the personality that he is. I'm not sure if you're familiar with Molly, but, famous Australian
Diehard St Kilda supporter.
diehard St Kilda supporter, Melbourne Storm supporter if you follow the dropped handbag game. But I'm just going to throw a few left rights into rugby league. Pretty much all sport, all it is. Anyway, it's when he retires or when he passes away, that's it. It's just his legacy. Whereas I was like, that's cool, but I would like to be able to have it so that in theory it could be a business that continues if I decide to step back in some. If I stop working, on the road for argument's sake, it can still be a business that continues.
Yeah.
And that's the loose idea. And while I haven't done a lot of building specifically on that, it's all about everything that goes before that point.
You've got a good foundation with it. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I don't know what it'll look like in 10 years' time, but that's
part of the journey.
Part of the journey. And that's sort of seeing where that ends up.
It's smart. You've got that option. You know, that's probably the most important thing.
Yeah.
Plus, you could pass it on to somebody else, like, you know, if you don't want to do it anymore or whatever.
That's it.
You've
And
got
it's
flexibility.
It's something where, say, if I go and break my leg tomorrow, walking down the stairs out the back, I can't tour. I can't go on the road until it's healed. So I want to be able to have something that will be able to operate alongside the physical touring side of things.
Yeah.
So,
Well, hold the railing on your way out, please.
yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
It's
will.
slippery out there at the moment.
It is.
So-
It is. Well, my wife, Amber, slipped down the stairs yesterday, not to point anything out, but, you know, like when you're walking down the steps, you got to be you got to be as careful as you can in your daily life.
Really do.
Same thing, like if you're a musician, this will probably tie into what you're doing. How do you approach musicians? It's like, okay, just like put your hands in your pockets at all times. Like don't get your fingers cut off, because this is like, these are like
That's the moneymaker.
Yeah, this is the money makers. Like, how do you
true,
keep your people safe?
One of the most
Oven mitts.
Yeah, that's it.
Just lock them in their hotel room, take away every appliance. No,
Purgatory.
one of the most frustrating things I see semi-regularly is vocalists who will say one thing or have an issue with their voice, and I'll go out of my way to get them throat coats, to get them a doctor to come to the hotel, or, you know, whatever it is that they need. They mentally feel like they need to be able to relax. Yet they'll then either smoke or vape or do these things which they say, oh, no, that's fine. It's fine by me. And I'm just like, why would a guitarist go like, I don't know, play whatever that game is?
Yeah.
Oh, no, that's fine. I always win at that. It's like, why wouldn't you do everything? You stop talking. You go vocal rest. If you know you've got a gig the next day and you're already feeling hoarse, like, get on your lemon and honey tea, get on your throat coat, get on all of the tricks of the trade, stop talking, drink lots of water, and stop doing. Anyway, I'm feeling.
It's a tool, and it's an instrument, and you got to care for that. Yeah. Like, it's what you bring to the team, I guess, in a band, right? Like,
it's like, why would you go for running in a barefoot on a road if you're a drummer and you need your feet to be able to operate?
Same idea.
It's all the same thing, and there's one time I came to nearly blows with the singer because he was out the front of a show. He was smoking. He was just wearing a singlet. I'm like, dude, you need to be warm. This is like mother's advice. This isn't even
Tour dad.
Yeah, no, this is stuff that your mum would.
it's pretty applicable. Like,
it's stuff that all your mums would have gone, oh, you need to jump or keep warm, like drink lots of water, stay inside or stay hydrated. You know, obviously don't smoke, things like that. And you see them, you're just like, you obviously don't care enough about yourself to be able to. Anyway,
Yeah. It makes sense.
it's good to get it out there, though.
good,
like,
it's a safe
it's good
space.
advice.
It's a safe space.
but yeah, it's those sort of things where you kind of their justification, not just singers, but the justification you see people do on tour for their behavior, and you go, this is my job, this is my business. I'm not going to go out and get that drunk at 2 a.m. when I know I've got to get up at 6 a.m. and drive for 10 hours because it'll make me want to drive off a bridge.
Yeah.
Like, it's the worst thing in the world. I don't make good decisions. You know, all of these. Even to the point of people like, oh, we're going to go out for a beer after the show. It's like, you know what? I could go back to the hotel and sleep for an extra 2 hours.
Yeah.
Great. I'm going to need that for decisions I potentially have to make. So it's a tough scenario when you're like, yeah, you're in a different part of the world, or you're on tour, if infrequently, you want to do all these exciting things, but at the same time, you want to be able to deliver a good show and look after yourself and be able to do it continually as a business for years to come, but then not think about the short-term kind of bits along the way.
So you've touched on the fact that you've gone to the States. I'm guessing have you gone overseas anywhere else other than the States, or just?
I don't count New Zealand as overseas, but I've been there a couple of times as well.
That's fine. So like, how do you get to that point where you're managing or interacting with people going overseas I'm really interested. Like, are you responsible for setting up passports and visas and all that kind of stuff, or is that you are?
I was just feeding back on that.
Yeah. So, like, what do you do to get a band overseas safely? And like, is there a backline over there that you hire out, or they bring it? Like, I'm really curious to know about overseas touring.
Yep. I've been really lucky with overseas touring in that I haven't had to deal with that side of thing too much.
Yeah.
And it really goes, it's so case by case. Every act, every tour manager, every band's management label. So there's really not a one size fits all for everybody. So sometimes it'll be the band's manager will take care of the visas, take care of everything, and then basically go, here's all the information, implement it.
Yeah.
And then you've got to there might be a few bits and pieces along the way. You've got to fill in the gaps, but it's given to you. They've advanced it all. Go with it. Sometimes it's a case of, right, we're bringing you on to do all this because they don't want to do it. Here's all the key information. CC me and everything in emails. So I've been lucky that the 2 tours I've done, the manager's taken care of the majority of the advancing side of things, where it's been the visas, the flights. He's booked all of those. Yep. I've liaised on those to make sure that my schedule aligns and the best fit of where to come in and all these sort of things. And also we've been supports on those tours, which means that I don't have to liaise with every venue specifically.
Oh, okay.
I don't have to look after that. So I've been really lucky on the 2 club tours that I've done. And then Warped Tour is a whole different beast again, which still blows my mind on it. And again, that was the same thing where the band's management and their label had arranged the visas and arranged the flights, and I just came in to do the driving on that one, just as that, and everything else was taken care of. So there's been a couple of other options to go over to do the full package in terms of tour managing and liaising with the venues, all the stuff that I would do here, but the schedules just haven't aligned. And that's the tough thing, because here a tour might last for 10 days, 14 days, and you can fit lots in. You could fit in 3 in a month if your schedules align. But in the States, it might be 6 weeks, 8 weeks.
Yeah, big ones.
And that's a chunk. So if you can't do that whole chunk, why take someone who can only do a portion?
Yeah.
But the best side of that is that you can then work with so many different artists and so many different types of artists, types of bands, and so many different group dynamics that it makes you better at your job, because you can experience so much different
variables.
Exactly right. But to kind of flip that here, all of that. So often if I'm looking after a band, say from the States, liaising with the person who's doing the visas, booking the flights, booking the accommodations, basically everything. I've just got everyone's email address and just spreadsheet ahoy and color it all up.
Yep.
And it's done.
You got to be organized.
Oh, I love spreadsheets.
Really organized. Continue. I just got to reset the camera again.
Yeah.
Jackson, I know you're a man of regiment and all that kind of stuff. You like having your schedule set out. How does talking to someone that does that for a living resonate with you?
Well, that's a good question, because I set all these, formulas for myself. It's like, I got to do this to fit everything into my day. Whether that happens or not is another question, I guess. So you have to allow external things to happen, and you have to be okay with that. You got to be chill about it, I guess. So it's like, I have to prepare this, have this meeting, whatever with your day. Oh, this person might just pop out of nowhere and interrupt everything with your flow, but you can't take it personally. You can't take your regiment personally. You just got to move on. But obviously when you got things like flights and everything,
it's a bit stricter.
So it's interesting.
That's a word.
More strict.
I get some people frustrated at wanting to be at an airport. Say, for example, from downtown Melbourne to the airport's 40 minutes, and say, I will then leave 3 hours from the hotel to the flight as a general thing. So I'm like, can't we sleep in an extra hour?
No.
I was like, yeah, you can, realistically, but what's to say that whoever went out last night doesn't get up for 10 minutes? Sweet. Get to the airport, there's a massive queue or there's an issue. Okay. And build it. And then all of those facets add an extra 10 minutes, add an extra 10 minutes. So if you leave it to the last minute, then I get stressed because I'm trying to rush everyone. Whereas if I know that I've got an extra 20% built-in time, I'm going to be heaps more relaxed. If someone's 5 minutes late, fine, we've got time for that. If someone's left their passport back at the hotel, it's like, okay, sweet, I can make that happen. Like those sort of things. And so
what's that? You said that 20% you try to like add onto your blocks of time.
That's
roughly.
just a very loose number, but it's factoring in, say for example, if I'm going from Melbourne to Adelaide drive and we say it's going to be 9 hours, I'll probably factor at 10.
Yeah.
Because then you've got if you've got a flat tire, if you get a,
just traffic, anything. Yeah.
You're really
Who
enjoying
knows?
the big koala, like really enjoying
really
it.
enjoying it.
Yeah.
A drive.
People need to update their Instagram and take
They do.
selfies
They
and
do.
that,
A sound guy puts petrol in a diesel vehicle and you have to try and source a new vehicle in Horsham on a Sunday morning. It's on a Saturday morning.
Those sound guys, man, I'll tell you what.
And he's so great at his job and he's such a great guy. So if it was one of the band members, I would have probably clipped them across the ears.
Yeah.
But this guy, I'm like, you know what? I'll just make a joke of it every so often, but I know you feel terrible enough that
Use it as ammunition.
I got paid an extra day because I had to drive the vehicle back to Horsham and pick up the other one. So I'm like, I get paid an extra day's work. You're okay. But it's factoring in that bit of time. It might even be the difference between leaving straight after the show and driving overnight so that you have an extra 4 hours or 5 hours, which is why that show worked with the diesel. But it's constantly factoring that in so that way I'm more relaxed and I don't have to crack the whip at people all the time, and then they get resentful at me because I'm always telling them off, so on and so forth. But then it's also communicating all of those things in advance. It's like I said before, managing the expectations. If a band knows, okay, it's Melbourne to Sydney is a 770 kilometre drive, I think it is. So 9 hours if you're doing it by yourself. I usually factor in like 11, nearly 12. You go, oh, look, it's such a long drive. I'm like, I've included stops, I've included in case we get a flat tire or
all the variables. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's my big thing, so that you're constantly managing expectations and I'm more relaxed, so everyone's more relaxed and everyone has a better experience.
Makes a difference. Performances will be different as well if you're relaxed. You know what I mean?
sure.
Like there's so many different things. Like, not that I've played gigs on that scale, but we've all played gigs where something's going wrong 5 minutes before the show,
Absolutely.
or something happens, and then you're thinking of something.
It's one of those
else.
things. I kind of thrive off it though, because like probably a lot like you, like these variables, all these like things that ruin the show per se. It's a learning experience.
Yeah.
Yep.
Like it's a new set of skills to learn. So
Yeah.
it's got to look at it with a positive light and attack with the right angle. And hey, it's not that bad.
No, that's right.
One of the great things about the Australian touring circuit, in difference to say America, Europe, these parts of the world, is that because there's only a handful in each city and you can tour so often, you're going to go back to the same places time after time after time. So you can build a really good rapport with security, heads of security, with venue managers, with venue bookers. And you know exactly what you're walking into. So that makes your life so much more relaxed when you know you're going to the corner hotel and you know that whatever venue manager there or whatever in-house guy, you've had beers with last time because you stuck around and had an after beer and builds a bit of a
That's it,
relationship.
Yeah.
So you know that everything is going to be exactly how you want it. And you only have to send 2 or 3 emails like, yep, sweet, same as last time. Bam, 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 away you go. So that's a really beneficial side of Australian touring. So with somewhere like America where there's a big city, you might have those, but then you might not do every city every time, and it takes a bit more time to build those relationships. So that's one thing I'm really thankful for, the way that Australian touring works. And it just makes my life a lot easier with the booking agents, with the venues.
There's a rapport there already.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Another thing you've announced through Reverse K recently, I'm not sure whether you're allowed to talk about bands you've worked with or going to work with.
If it's on the website, I can talk about it. So.
Yeah, awesome. Well, you announced the Amazing Listener tour.
Yep.
Now, growing up, when I first heard these guys, they didn't click with me at all. It was a big used to melody and stuff in my songs, and the spoken word really, like, it was very talented.
Very different dynamic. But
yeah, it's awesome. But then they released their new album. How long ago? 2-3 months, maybe.
I think it was end of February was when they released the full album.
Yeah, and it blew me away, man. I love it. I absolutely love it.
Have you bought tickets to the show?
I have not yet. I'm going to talk to you about that afterwards because after listening to that album, I need to go see that. And I saw on your Facebook you mentioned, well, you pretty much had a large essay just about your appreciation for listener and how you got into them. So if you want to talk a bit more about that and lead on into the tour and all that and how exciting it is, that'd be cool.
I could have probably written a couple more paragraphs to that essay when I wrote it, but having a lot of friends who do similar things, everyone appreciates that, but it's at the same time, you don't need to wax lyrical when
that's right.
You're all kind of in the same sort of field. You know, you say that it's a really exciting thing. So I didn't want to go into all the personal details, but now I've got a microphone and I've got a camera. And I can
Let's hear it.
see you later, everyone. No, it's really, really exciting. I've been sitting on it for a couple of months now, and I'm still a little bit blown away that it's actually happening. Like on any project you kind of work on for a long time. They're a band that I think most people first heard them in a cameo that they did on a Chariot song called David De La Hoz, where they filmed it in one take in, I've forgotten the producer's name, in Matt Goldman, I think it was, in his studio. Or he's produced, 99% sure, he produced the last Chariot record. And it's a shot where they're in a live room and then the camera pans out and they go into a little sort of mixing room, and then there's two drummers in there, and then it cuts to a little pinball room, and there's this guy just doing this shouty, intense, almost what is it when you can't stop saying swear words, like
cussing,
Tourette's,
almost a Tourette's-like delivery. Not that he's like dropping F-bombs or whatever, but
manic behavior, almost.
just almost like who is this person and what is this person? And then it kind of pans out and there's a whole, the film clip's amazing if you get a chance to look at it. But so many people, that's the first time that they heard of Listener. And not long before that, a friend of mine had shown me a clip of a song called Wooden Heart, which is an incredible song.
Yeah, it is.
And it's probably their most popular song. And just kind of remember hearing it going, I love stuff, like you're saying, I love stuff that's melodic, but I also love stuff that's lyrical. And just went, this is incredible. This story it's telling, the mental, so the imagery, the lyrical imagery, it's just this incredible piece. And then with the film clip, I'm just like, it's a great piece of art. The whole
it's so
package.
raw, like it's authentic. It's innovative stuff, to say the least. You know, like spoken word and music combined in such a way. Like it's performance art to me. Like it's really something to watch and take in.
Yeah, and it's not just, you know, there are bands who are trying to combine the both, like your La Disputes and whatnot, and they're great. But I feel like this has got a different energy to it. It's very honest and raw. Sometimes spoken word stuff can very much come across as a bit, not shallow, but a little bit word heavy and emotionless.
Yep, pretentious.
Great.
Yeah.
Whereas this kind of, for whatever reason, bypasses that because it feels very real. The delivery feels real.
It's genuine, yeah.
Genuine.
Yeah.
And so I really got into the Wooden Heart record and just been a big fan ever since. And then it kind of got to the start of the year and through a few things that aligned, I just sent an email and said, hey, I'd love to make this happen. And throughout the course of a few emails, locked it away. It took me a couple of weeks to actually book it. Everything's fallen into place.
Meant to happen, dude.
Exactly right. And the tour announcement went on sale on the 6th, and you know, we're nearly or just under half sold out for the Melbourne show, and the other cities are a little bit slower, but
Melbourne always sells out first, doesn't it? Pretty much.
Well, that's it. And looking at their stats on their socials, on Spotify and whatnot, Melbourne's, I think, in the top 5 cities with the most listeners and the most, pun not intended, but, you know, the most engagement. So it was really not surprising to see those numbers. And it's just really exciting, people who have gone, oh my gosh, I've been waiting for 5 years to see this band. And I kind of had a moment the day that we announced it, just because I've actually tried a couple of times. When I found the email, maybe like 5 or 6 years ago, make something happen, and it didn't quite happen. Like maybe twice before this, never kind of aligned. And then this was like the right time, everything.
Third time's the charm, mate.
Third time's the charm.
They say it takes 3 calls to get the sale.
That's
you
it.
know, like
It's very much that way. So
how many dates is the tour all up? Because you're doing New Zealand too, aren't you?
doing New Zealand.
Yep.
So there's 3 Australian dates. Then they're playing a festival in Wollongong called Yours and Ours Festival, which is already sold out.
Sweet.
They're going to New Zealand for 2 dates. There may not be an extra couple of shows in there that we'll announce later on. And then 3, it's Canberra, Sydney, Melbourne. So 8 Australian shows sold up, all up, and 2 New Zealand shows. Sorry, 7 Australian shows, 2 New Zealand shows.
Yeah.
All up. And
it's exciting times, dude.
yeah, it's crazy. It's the thing that gets me most is seeing people. I was really worried that it would just be me and my friends who would be into it.
Yeah.
You know, we've wanted to see this band.
Because it is quite niche. Like, yeah.
Yep. They you know, have never been here before, and who knows? I had no idea, and that was really scary going into it. But
the reception's good.
the reception's been really great.
That's
People who I
awesome.
don't know who have been just as excited, and I've been getting emails, "Hey, you want to support?" And I'm like, that's the stuff I want to see, the engagement of people wanting to reach out.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's really cool, man. I came across these guys pretty much because that Wooden Heart film clip was pretty much viral because there wasn't really too many spoken word music like groups out there. And I remember that being released. I'm like, I was really taken aback because, as I said, used to melody and stuff like that, it was just completely different. But once you kind of turn that switch off of melody needs to be in music for me to find it enjoyable, you try to appreciate it for the art that it really is. And he's a lyrical genius, that guy.
Yep.
So, and can grow a mean mustache too.
Thick.
And the whole new record is about an inventor or about a creator or about somebody from that part of history. So knowing that going into each song and having the historical context, while it might not be specifically about, hey, I've just made the nuclear bomb, it's kind of a little bit more of the personal exploration of what the situation that person is in that moment. I know another song is about, I think it's about the guy who made the diesel engine and about how he, like, try after try after try after try, couldn't get it, or all of this stuff. And so there's a real, what's the phrase? Is a real, like, we're going to get it in the end. Don't worry, just stick with me. Like
Perseverance
kind of feel. And anyway, there's a lot of that in the song.
Yeah.
So that writing angle, which you can only listen to so many songs that are just your standard, not just your standard love songs, but love, heartbreak, dynamic, and first person talking to somebody else who's done them wrong or done them good. Like that, after all, you've got to do something great with the music to make that engaging, you know? So when I don't want to call it a concept record because while there's a very thin narrative that runs through the whole thing, it definitely is much more engaging because this is giving a snapshot of human emotion rather than a person's emotions.
Good storytelling. I have, to be honest with you, I know we mentioned this last week after the show, like about Listener. I have no idea what they sound like. I don't know anything, but like hearing the background to it actually sounds really interesting.
Yep.
I reckon you'd actually like them.
Yeah.
Because I know you're very much a melody heavy guy when it comes to your music as well. But when, like, especially the new record, that's what really triggered it for me. Like, I mean, it's a bit heavier than some of their older stuff, which is
Absolutely
obviously resonates with me quite a bit there. But yeah, just his lyrical concepts and stuff, man. Like, you can have a lot more of a deep exploratory subject in your music when you don't have to worry about how many words are going to fit into your melody. So it's very interesting.
It's a smart thing too, because a lot of people, like you were mentioning before, they write the song and think about the words after.
Yeah.
That's what I do because I don't care. I just want to play music. But a lot of people just default to the heartbreak or whatever. But there is room for really good storytelling in music, and it doesn't necessarily have to be singing.
No, not at all.
And it's really cool.
Yeah.
It's different.
Yeah.
So like,
That's the fun bit of it for me.
and I hope that a lot of people are, you can tell that there's a lot of people interested in it because, if you have sold out in some of your shows and getting there on some of the other shows, there is a demand for something different.
It's introspective stuff, and people really can connect to that. Like, you can hear a million pop songs, after a while they all sound the same. But when you hear something really introspective, like, even if you're not really connecting with the guy, he's being real and authentic, and you're like, just that human energy he's expressing, you can connect with.
Yeah.
And it comes in all forms of platforms, not just music, but this is just a cool collision of, like, you could just say like poetry, really, in a way. Like, poetry and music really combine well. Like, it's not like he's doing, what's it called when people do like stand-up poetry?
Oh, like slam poetry.
yeah, like
yeah,
slam
yeah,
poetry.
yeah.
It's not
That's
like that.
that's where the guy. What's the guy a couple of months ago? Hobo Johnson.
Yeah.
You kind of listen to that, and a friend of mine posted something along the lines that it's Hobo Johnson is just listener for Mac DeMarco fans, and I was like, wow, that is the most accurate description of.
That is a burn.
But it's the most accurate description,
So good.
and I couldn't. I was rolling around on my floor. I'm like, oh, because you listen to that, and it doesn't feel genuine.
No.
You listen to him, you kind of, well, that's that song that went viral for a couple of minutes. It didn't feel genuine. It felt kind of creepy with the content,
Yeah.
and like the delivery. It's like, no, you just want to be able to find the way that the words, because in the new record there's a little bit of melody, but
I noticed that.
it's not straight like hip hop where it's or metal where it's. On a side note, I had a great debate with a guy in a bar about that metal and hip hop are closer than metal and rock. And he was like, no, absolutely not. And I'm like, yeah, well, what's the point of metal? Metal's about the screaming in particular. It's about the delivery and it's about the timing. It's about the da-da-da.
That's right.
And whereas, rock's got a little bit more. Yeah, anyway, it was great.
You're pretty dead on with that, though. It does make. I've never heard that comparison, but like melodically and lyrically or vocally,
You try
or
and
whatever.
fit a certain
It's
amount
about the
into
attitude also, right?
Yeah.
That's it. That's
why new metal's so great, because it combines the two of the best things you can into something even better.
And to go further, when I saw Reverse K, even though it's a reverse R, I just immediately thought of Korn. I'm like, I love Korn. Not necessarily the food, the band.
I think you might be the first person to mention that. But the day that I did it, I was sitting on the train going to visit my sister, and I'm on the phone to my mate who does a bunch of my sort of that side of things, like built the website, helped me build the website, and shout out to Verve Networks. I told my brother-in-law, I'm like, oh, this is what I've called it. He's like, Reverse K. I'm like, what? Like Reverse Kanga, right? I'm like,
Oh, no.
I don't get it.
You don't get it?
It must be an Australian
Can you,
thing.
an eloquent storyteller, try and explain a reverse Kanga in PG terms? For our
Okay,
viewers?
if you're saying in PG terms, I think I get it.
all right, I'd like to hear what you think it is.
I'd love to hear the expression in PG terms.
Let's hear the expression.
It is a PG concept. Like it's not a, it's definitely suitable for this 7:30 time slot.
It's like an American Pie kind of.
What would you, if someone said to you, oh, he did a reverse Kanga, what do you think?
It's some sort of sexually explicit move.
No. I love how
First word.
Well, actually, no, I take it back. Could be.
If you're that way
If you're that way inclined.
Well, I would just think it's like a reverse cowgirl, but for Australians, because you guys are like getting so that's. Do you know
Quite
what
a jumpy move.
I don't mean to jump to
the
conclusions.
kangaroo is like, anyway, too much detail. No, a reverse Kanga is when you sit on a toilet backwards
Well, I was wrong.
and you leave the skid mark on the bowl, because obviously the bowl's not designed. The front of the bowl is not designed for the poo to hit it, so it will slide. Whereas
Yes.
you sit it normally, then it straight into the water. So reverse Kanga is when you sit on it backwards, which some say is the more accurate way to do it, because you walk in and you can sit and hold. But
And then you've got a shelf for your chocolate milk.
that's the argument. There's a solid argument that's much more
good.
ergonomic. You kind of sit and and then you reverse out, and you're fine.
I'm really glad we touched on that.
Me too.
So anyway, as you were saying,
So now I was very embarrassed at first, but now it's kind of funny. And also it looks like the website looks like Revasek. So it's almost like a Russian company. So
It's a Russian shoe brand.
yeah, like a space company from the late 80s. So I don't know, figure it out.
Only positives there, mate. Only positives.
Revasek.
I'm really digging this conversation. We're doing good for time. We're about an hour in. So we're in the wrap up territory, but we still probably got about 20 minutes or so. So I'd be keen to learn more about like what other groups have you worked with? Is there any names that we might know? I mean,
Are you allowed to talk about names?
I don't know if you're allowed to talk. Whatever you're allowed to talk
Yeah.
about. Whatever. I'm just keen to know what kind of repertoire you
Sweet.
have.
Name drop a little bit.
Yes, let's hear some name drops.
Well,
Excite our
Bit of
listeners.
shameless name dropping.
I'm going to name drop two bands to start with that I've got a finger in their pie. No pun intended. No, like inappropriate.
No American Pie reverse Kangas going
No,
on.
no, none of that. No. So one's a band called I Valiance from Melbourne, which book for them. They just finished a second tour. They've got a remix competition at the moment where they put their stems out for their latest single. And if you just want to, they're very, someone dubbed them clowncore. So they're like a very heavy, brutal metal band, but they've got some really interesting elements and that kind of bit of carnival sound in some of the stuff. And one of the guys is really into electronic and hip hop stuff. So there's some real little flavors of that going in there.
A lot of influences, yeah.
Yeah. So they've just put that out. I think the competition runs till the end of the month. So if it's something that someone who's listening wants to remix something and have a bit of a dabble with that. So that's really cool. They're going on tour with Boris the Blade in August, which would be great. And there's another band from Perth called Treehouses. If you're a fan of Listener, I'd highly recommend Treehouses. Think of, I'm trying to think of a great example. It's probably kind of, I don't know. It's think of Listener, but
spoken
softer.
word vibe, yeah?
Yeah.
Is that the one?
Yeah. Spoken word vibe. A bit more, think of like the Poison City sound with your Camp Copes and your Smith Street Band and your, that kind of world.
Yeah.
But a little bit more sort of bit folky, scrams, emo, very unashamedly embracing the emo term, but it's probably more like the fourth wave emo rather than the third wave My Chemical. Hang on, let me get that right. Third wave like My Chem, and that was that fourth wave.
I think that's third.
So it'd be more the fourth wave emo, which is more of these rock and indie bands that are going more, almost skipping that frame, going back to your Fugazis and that kind of thing, but in a more like pub rocky, folky sound. So they're two bands that I shout out.
Awesome, you've worked with some pretty big names in the past too, haven't you?
Yeah, now we're getting into big territory.
Let's hear it.
If I was going to say my big three, some biggest three acts, I've worked for Bon Jovi before. I've driven them, and they sort of flew into Essendon Airport, and I was in a vehicle and picked up three of the members and drove to the hotel.
Did you meet Phil X?
This would have been 2014 or 15 when they played at Etihad. Two shows at Etihad.
Don't think Phil X was in at that.
Yeah.
He's the YouTube guy, yeah?
Yes, he is. He used to do stuff for the name escaped Fretted Americana. So he used to be like the YouTube demonstration guy for all the vintage guitars. So it's similar to Norm's Rare Guitars on YouTube. But this guy, he was really big Canadian guitarist. He played with Triumph. I don't know if any of you guys will know that, but they're a really big Canadian band, and he joined them.
Great motorcycle brand too.
And then he, yes, it is. And then he started, I think he played with like Tommy Lee or something. I don't know. But then he got really big on YouTube, and then he picked up the Bon Jovi gig. So, it was humble beginnings for YouTube. There you go.
Allegedly, they're coming back and playing the grand final, which I don't know, the Australian Rules grand final, which I don't know how I feel about. It would fit demographically, but last year they had the Killers and it was perfect.
Oh, so good, man. I feel like Jack Rewalt and everything.
I feel like they're too popular for the grand final. Does that make sense?
Who, the Bon Jovi?
Bon Jovi, yeah.
Aussie crowd loves a bit of Bon Jovi though.
Loves.
It'll be definitely the Bogan crowd, the like redneck crowd. Just if they play like some of the ultimate classics, it'll just bring the house down.
Oh, absolutely.
And it'll be mostly like parents there and like people who only have like 4 or 5 bands they listen to. So I don't know. We'll see. But
he's got some classics, that guy, man. Like he's probably in my top 3 Bonds.
Bon Scott, Bon Jovi, and
Bono. From
Bon
YouTube.
Ox.
Yeah, Bono.
Bono. I would never have said that.
Can I just say something? Jackson and I, since the first episode, have wanted to do that joke.
We've been waiting for like a Bon Jovi reference, so Tyler could just
he said Bon
formulate
Jovi, and I like was smirking at him, but he wasn't looking at me.
Your heart just leapt out of your
It caught me off guard. I was just like, oh, Bon Jovi, cool.
Wow, shot through the heart with that one.
And you're to blame.
You give Pon's a bad name.
I was actually thinking of Bounty, but that's not really a Bond. There's the Bounty bar. I was like, oh, that
Bonty? No, Bonty doesn't sound the same.
it's not the same.
No. Number 2. What's your number 2? Drop your juice on us.
So this one's a great one because
No reverse Ks, all right? Kangas, whatever you call them.
you'll go home and try that. I know you will.
There's no way. I'm too cultured for that.
That's the only way I go, mate.
I wouldn't be surprised.
It's
not
no
many
difference.
people are.
If you're out in the paddock and everything's a reverse kanga because you got to hold the tree so you don't fall over. So technically that's a reverse kanga as well, but when you're out back. But I'm trying to think of what a good number 2 because I've got a great number 3. that's a hard one because I've done some gigs where so for the Bon Jovi one, I was the band's driver, and there was 3 of us, and we would have the same members in each car, and we'll kind of go from the hotel to the whatever. And so sometimes there are bands I could name like Slipknot, Metallica, Red Hot Chili Peppers, where I've driven their crew. So you've picked up from the airport, and you've just got sound guys, light guys, all that kind of the B and C party, which are techs, crew, whatever, which is cool, and you kind of get to the show and all this sort of stuff. And sometimes there's bands that I've done that at a Soundwave or at a festival, a big day out, where I've not even really known the band. I've just kind of gone, be here at this time, this is your contact person, drive them there. So, I could say I've done Metallica and Slipknot on all this, but it's the crew, it's luggage. It's one that sounds a lot more impressive, but realistically, it's like it could be a group of guys from a local business going to, such and such for a function. It doesn't. You treat them the same. It doesn't really matter.
They'd have some knowledge though, working for bands like that, wouldn't they?
Some of the banter, some of the you just hear them talking smack on him, not on each other, but just, all right, well, we've finished the show at 2 a.m. We pack down. We'll get out of there at 4 a.m. Or not, we'll get out of there at 3 or 4, and then we're on a flight, so we're back at the Sydney Entertainment Centre the next day, so we can start setting up. And that's schedule's just wild. You kind of see some of that stuff, so that's really cool. But then there's, I don't know, the people you work with, it's so relative to what you're into. So you could say a band, and I'm like, oh, yep, work with that. Jared and I were talking about, a friend of mine and I, yesterday we're talking about all these old emo bands. I'm like, oh, yep, toured with, talking about From First to Last, and talking about the Wonder Years who I've worked with, I really love.
Wow. Yes.
Who did a tour last year? Hawthorne Heights, worked with.
Nice.
Acacia Strain, like these sort of bands that people who will be like, wow, that's great. And some people are like, I have no idea who it is. So a band like the Front Bottoms, who I did 2 years ago, one of my favorite bands at the time, still really love them. And it was just that one of the few bands where I've got the job right as I'm super into them. I'm like, I'm loving this band. I've got this band. Another one's the 68, which is Josh Scogan was from The Chariot, Norma Jean. And he also actually co-produced the Listener record. And so I was talking to him the first time I toured with him a couple of years ago. I'm like, I really love Listener. You should have brought him out. And he's like, yeah, they're really great guys. I'd love to come here. And so that was really cool, kind of have that third-party network. And then so when they came out last year, he'd just finished recording the record and he played me some early mixes, and I was like, oh, that's so cool. And I just kind of had to wait for 6 months for it to be released and whatever. But I'd say the number 3, and probably the biggest one that comes to mind, and early in the year I went out on a date and we're talking for a bunch of hours, and she's like, all right, give us your top 3. Give us your top 3 acts. Same sort of things like this, except now all 3 of us are on a date.
It's the ultimate question.
It is. And usually I don't tell people straight away because I don't want that to be my card and everyone's like, oh, you've got no personality, but you've just got this cool name. Like, I don't want to be that what I'm leading with. I want to be able to drop it in the
You're definitely a cool personality, man.
safe space.
That's how I know.
We've established that.
Yeah.
So we can drop some names
Stop
now.
it. No, keep going. So yeah, this, and it was like 1 a.m. We've been chatting for hours, and I dropped this name, and she almost had a she almost started hyperventilating, and I was like, oh, I'm glad I don't use that card very often. Anyway, we're not dating, so that doesn't mean anything with that side of things. But maybe wasn't the last time she came out. The time before, I worked on the Beyonce shows here, and yeah, calm down, Tyler.
That's like the ultimate name drop, man.
Come down to
That's right. That's like,
hard to beat.
It is. And usually I just put them in the same category as those bands I was just saying, where you've done like Guns N' Roses, or you've done Slipknot or whatever. You've just driven for the band and crew, which was most of the job for that week. But one of the days, I get a finish the gig that night, and there was a day off the next day, and they're like, we don't need you tomorrow on the schedule. I get a tap on the shoulder saying, hey, you're going to get a text tonight. We're going to need you at 7 a.m. at the hotel. Just be ready for that, and you'll get all the information then. So 3 a.m, I get a text saying, hey, we're going to meet at this hotel. We're going here. And that's pretty much all it said. Here's your contact person. Yeah, no worries. Rock up. Gets on the bus, and it's all the backup dancers, all the everyone like this. And I was like, okay, sweet. That's not my usual crew, because usually there was a driver that would be them and there's just a lot of band and crew on that tour.
Yeah.
And drove them to a pub in Melbourne called the Retreat Hotel,
Yep.
which was across the road from where I worked at the time. And we'd go to Retreat for lunch. I'm like, oh, this is pretty cool. And they're like, yeah, we won't need you back until 3:00 or whatever. I was like, well, I'm not able to go and sit in there. I'll just go and sit at my desk. I was only there a couple of days a week. And I was just going and working from there, kind of pretending to work, really just checking
Facebook,
memes and
chilling out.
And later that day was when the whole Beyonce in Brunswick thing happened. I don't know if you remember that. And there's a photo of her standing out the front of a house, and kind of got a photo of her in a gown in front of this old house. And basically what had happened is they were using the Retreat as part of a video shoot.
Oh, okay.
Then they released, maybe a month or so after that, they released a new album, and every song, when they released it, surprisingly, had a video clip for it. And one they shot there, and then everyone was like, she's in Brunswick, she's hanging out like, and I knew this, but I couldn't say anything because they said, look, this is on the hush. And then there was another location that drove them to downtown. It was a little laneway that they had blocked off, and they were doing another shoot down this laneway. And so I'm standing there talking to the site security guard, who I got my security license a couple of years ago, and he was one of the trainers. So I'm standing there chatting, and I'd be sort of sitting here and then the gap was, the laneway was probably where you are. Next thing you know, this woman in a bathrobe, kind of, I don't know, just under like 5'9" or whatever, kind of walks down, and you kind of looked, and I'm like, and she's kind of looked back at me and sort of half smiled and then turned in and gone in, and I'm like, that's Beyonce, and just made eye contact and smiled, and I'm, wow. And that's like, it's like, wow, that is top.
That's great.
I can't
That's
really be
pretty
number one.
impressive.
It's a long story for that, but it's just like,
No doubt she had, that energy, that aura about her. Like,
yeah, it's incredible,
scary, man.
And like, she wasn't as big as what I expected in terms of like size-wise. I thought she would be a few inches taller, but like the fact that she realized that I'd clocked her with my eyes and went, that's actually her. And she's just gone like, pleasant. Yep. And then I was like,
Tips the hat.
great. Yeah, you tipped the hat, my lady.
Milady.
We all went there.
Yeah.
Typical memes.
So, yeah. So yeah, that's number one. And sometimes I think it'd be funny to lead with that, but then where do you go from a story like that? When
You can't.
You can't.
You can't. That's great.
Anyway, that's the
That's a great top three right there. Right there, you know.
Top two is a floating one because it's it could be whoever. It depends on what sort of music you're into.
Yeah.
I did an act a couple of weekends ago. This country Americana folk singer, and down to Country Victoria, she had a show there, and it's like I'd never heard of her before, but the people at this show were like, "Oh my gosh! Like it's so exciting! You get to work with her, you get to hang out with her. Like this is incredible. We love her." And it's like for those people, that act is there for what I feel about listening, how much I enjoy listening.
Yeah.
That's for them. And so to go into things with that attitude going, that is their favorite. And I mean, I have to do a little bit of research then if I'm selling T-shirts. Last night I did a gig in Castlemaine selling shirts, and the band had a documentary a few years ago, and I'd watched that. So like, sweet, I know at least bare minimum so you can have a conversation about it. Whereas if you don't go in prepared, you kind of go, oh, I think this is the best record, or I think that they think that you're the person who's always with the band, and you might work with them for one night or two nights. So
That makes sense, though. It's really cool. I think it's I've learned a lot tonight about the industry, and it's not necessarily just getting from point A to point B. There is a road crew. There are people who are responsible for people getting where they need to go and being on time, which is your kind of role. So tour dad is a very apt term for what you do. You are a manager to a point, but like not the typical manager. What people think.
I need an album a year, stat. Yeah, that
and
kind of guy.
that's how I explained to my parents when things started happening. They're all cool with it now, but it was a while before. Why don't you get a real job type scenario? But it's the difference between a tour manager is a very short-term project-based thing, probably much like a producer or a recording engineer. It's a short-term based thing, right? You've got this band in for a week, 2 weeks, a month. Then sign it off, bam, submit your invoice, get paid. you can never deal with them again if you choose not to.
Yeah.
Whereas as a manager, or an agent, you've got to continually be planning 2, 3, 5 years ahead. It's a rolling thing. And if you get sick of them, you can't just not talk to them again.
Yeah.
So that's the main difference between those two roles.
Yeah.
I think.
There you go.
It's a bit of a safety net, I guess. If you wanted to retain clients, you can, because you build a rapport. And if they're happy with what you do for them, I mean, there's no reason why they wouldn't come back to you anyway, unless you just say, I'm too busy. You know what I mean? I need to hand you over to somebody else or whatever. So it's a really cool insight. And I really appreciate you coming on the program and talking about what you do. So not to wrap it up just yet, but because I want to get into maybe like a funny story or something like that to end it up.
He's a funny man. I'm sure he's got a few growing up.
So what is your website is reversek.com?
Yep, that's correct.
Do you have Facebook and Instagram and all that stuff?
Have both of those.
Very good.
I think the Instagram is Reverse K Touring, because it's the good old somebody's got it with 20 followers and no posts.
And there's nothing you can do.
Can't message them saying, "Can I have this, please?"
I did, but if they never check it, then I'm out of luck. I've just got to wait until I get big enough that I can email old mate and say, "Hey, take it off them and give it to me." But I don't care enough for that. Just Reverse K on Facebook. You'll be able to find it. If listeners something you want to check out, there's like links on the website and ticket sales and all that sort of stuff. So that's something I've learned to do, is to work on the website and the graphic design stuff, which I'm not great at, but that's the sub skills that I've had to learn.
Yeah, that's
the really nice to
part of the essential toolkit these days.
Exactly.
Everything has to be branded. That's one thing I've learned being married to a graphic designer is you don't notice good design at all. You notice bad design. If something looks like shit, just like, oh, who did that? It's like Microsoft Paint.
Microsoft Sam did that.
Microsoft Sam. It's
I'm just
everything.
going to get you to record my voice.
It's great. It's great. You should do an audiobook with Microsoft Sam.
I could do a page a day and then have a rest.
Oh my God, I'm so sore in the throat. Oh.
So look, before we wrap it up, do you have a funny touring story, a funny moment, or like a spoof kind of moment like that you think of, or you want to share? Or you don't have to name names. You can change locations and names. But I'd love to hear a funny tour story.
Sure. Well, I'm trying to think of something off the top of my head. Maybe I might need to edit this 2 seconds out.
Yeah, that's fine.
I was thinking, I kind of lightly touched on it before, but I suppose it's not really a funny story, but I've been lucky enough to, as someone who thoroughly enjoys sports, I've been lucky enough to go and see, at the end of the first club tour I did in the US, I was able to go and see opening day for the Toronto Maple Leafs ice hockey. That was really cool. Just happened to be in Toronto that weekend.
Yeah.
First game of the year, like
Nice.
the first home game too, and it was their 100th season or 150th season or something, whatever the
Big
big
deal.
game, and just happened to be there and managed to get a ticket from someone who was like selling it off. And then the next time I went back, which is even more exciting because ice hockey's cool, but it's not really but I was able to go to Fenway for opening day last season, and it was just like,
That's great.
it was one day that I booked my flight out, so I had a day just to kind of decompress, and it was that day it was incredible, and just to go to Fenway and watch. It was the Sox versus the Pirates, and the Sox got up, and the woman who sat next to me was an amateur historian, so she was able to kind of explain a whole lot of stuff about the stadiem and about the team, just all this stuff. And
That's
it was just
great.
like,
That's like the perfect experience.
yeah. And then I went to Mark Wahlberg's restaurant afterwards. Actually, I suppose then this is a funny story. Sometimes like going out on off nights is the best. You call it roadie Fridays. So it might be like you got a gig and then you got the next day off, so you'll go out after the gig because you know that the next day you can lie in bed. I went to the Mark Wahlberg's, what's it called? Not Whataburger, Wahlburger.
That's it. Yep.
At Fenway. And then I was like, I want a bar. I want to have a few drinks. It's my last night in the States for a while. Bumped into this guy, start having a few drinks. He's like, where are you from? I'm like, here's the deal. If you guess where I'm from, I'll buy you a drink. If you guess it wrong, I'll give you 3 guesses. Sorry, if you guess it right, I'll buy you a drink. If you get 3 guesses to guess where I'm from, you buy me a drink.
Yep.
So he's like, say something. I'm like, hi, my name's Jason, blah, blah, blah. He's like, you're from Scotland? No. He's like, really? From England? No. From Ireland? No. All right, buy me a drink. So then he got his mate, and his mate did the same thing. And it went through like 3 or 4 people. So I'm getting these like American strength, free pouring drinks.
Yeah.
Like, and then the first, this friend of this girl comes up, she's like, "Oh, you're Australian," and I was like, "Oh, my gig is up."
The streak is over.
Somebody who can relate to that, because normally it's 1 out of every 10 people who come up to me are like, "Oh, are you from the States?" And of course I'm like, "Yes, I am." A lot of people are like,
"How did you know?"
Some
It's
girl,
the big American flag hoodie you're wearing, and the cape with the.
some
Don't
young
tread
girl
on
said to
me.
me yesterday, she's like, "Are you from the States?" I'm like, "Yep, sure am." And I just turned around because that's just like whatever. But like, people just automatically assume I'm Irish. It's like, "Oh wow, are you from Ireland?" I'm like,
You do sound Irish.
I don't hear it.
No,
it's always
don't at all, mate.
it's always Irish or Canadian. What part of Canada are you from? There,
I could
eh?
see how you could be mistaken for Canada,
Yeah.
but it would not be my first guess.
No, that's the thing. Is like I feel like my accent, as well as yours, is just strong enough to convey, okay, you're from Australia, or I'm. It's like I feel like the American diction is just more heavily and more bold. Like if I've always thought that different accents are like fonts. I feel like the American voice is bold. You know what I mean? And
When you compare an American voice to an Australian voice, which you're doing right now,
Yeah.
the Australian is always so much more relaxed.
it is.
But there's something about broadcasting an American accent that seems to fit that frequency really well.
Yeah.
I don't know why, but that's why everybody says to me, "Oh, it's so great that you're doing a podcast," or "Oh, you should be on radio." I'm like, I know. I've been told
I'm
that.
trying.
I've been told that. So
There's a great kind of side thing with that. And when you hear an American, this is kind of like a combined tour story. It's always happened. Americans come out here and go, "Wow, everyone in Australia drops the C-bomb so flippantly."
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, it's like, it's almost a sign of, yeah, you're mates. It's more a
jovial
positive thing
you know?
than a negative
Yeah.
thing. It's not for everyone, but it's like, it's no big deal. Whereas in America, we would drop it on tour and you'd see just people like stiffen up like,
I
"Oh
know.
my gosh, I can't believe that you
It's
said
going to
that."
go down. Yeah.
And what I think it is I think it's the hard T, soft T. Like when someone drops the N-bomb, if you hear an American, particularly an African-American drop it, you're like, yeah, that's what it's supposed to sound like, the soft R.
Yeah.
Whereas you hear someone drop it hard R.
with
it's,
the ER, it's like,
oh
man.
oh. Whereas if you hear an
Beyonce
Australian,
all over again.
whereas when you hear someone drop, an Australian drop a C-bomb,
it's
with
whatever.
a soft T, it's like, oh. Was then you hear an American try and they come out for 2 weeks and they've got a license to drop it. You're like, you hear the hard T and you're like, that is the sign. Your hair stands on the back. That is the sign of a fight. Like,
Yeah.
when
I
someone
know.
says that, it's like, it's the mate. It's like, mate. It's that inflection on the A instead of the short A instead of the long A.
Yes.
And you
Mate.
kind of go, yeah, it's the hard T, soft T. And when you hear an American say it, I'm not going to make you say it on the show.
No,
but
I know what you mean, because like I've said it. It's not a word I normally use in my vocabulary. But if I meet somebody that I don't necessarily really like over, maybe a little bit of an experience or something, I'm like, why are they being such a?
yeah.
And it's like people will literally turn their head and be like, he said the word, and it means so much more coming from me because
That's right.
it's such a firm affirmative thing.
The hard T.
Yeah, that's what it is.
And it's so funny to
you're
hear
onto something
Americans
there.
drop
Sure.
that. Oh, it's great. It just makes me so happy.
That's what you get into touring for, mate. Just
It's
for
that little stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I suppose actually here's probably one of my favorite tour stories. We were in the US 2016. It was about September 2016. And we're in Albuquerque, New Mexico. We didn't get to do any of the
Roswell stuff.
no, we didn't get to do that. We didn't get to do any of the let's say
Bad?
Bob's Burgers. It's Breaking Bad.
Yeah.
We didn't get to do any of the Breaking Bad stuff because we were just on a schedule and it was grand final days, AFL grand final day.
Oh.
And half the band, the Australian band, were as into AFL as what I am. And it was the Western Bulldogs. I live in Footscray, so it was like back home was
Hometown.
yeah. While I don't go for them, it was everything was painted red, white, and blue, and it was probably like
Yeah.
4th of July.
Yeah.
And I emailed the venue a week out and said, "Hey, can we please have a TV in the green room tonight because this is the equivalent of our Super Bowl?" And kind of we got there and there was a TV in the green room and we played at 9:30 and the game started about 10:30. So I quickly packed up at merch. I said, "This is my one night, guys. On tour tonight's my night. I usually cash in 1 or 2 if I'm not going to drive that night."
Yep.
And myself and 3 of them, we got a bottle of Jameson, we got some snacks, and we sat down in the green room. And all the Americans came in. There was 3 American bands on the tour, And we were all the three of us were going for Western Bulldogs. And I was like, oh, Sydney, it's got Harbour Bridge, it's Opera House. It's like, it's Sydney, go for that.
Yeah.
And so we sat there and just polished off this Jameson and watched football at midnight. And it's a great game of football and it was a great night. Yeah. And just to watch it with Americans is a favorite thing to do of mine, because trying to explain it, they go, you can throw the ball anyway. Yep. You can run it anyway. Yep. And trying to explain the rules.
Aerial ping pong.
Yes. Okay. But yeah, the venue started open for us, and then
That's awesome, dude.
yeah, it was a really nice memory to
awesome,
have.
though.
Yeah,
great.
of that. So
How did they go about getting it over there? Like, was it easy for them, or is it pay-per-view over there?
nah. So at the time, you could. I went and bought the adapter for your iPhone, so you can plug into HDMI.
Oh, yeah.
So I streamed it off my phone, and then we put it on the TV.
Perfect.
I know that's not really like the tour story where this happened, and
It's a wholesome story.
it's a wholesome story. Which
feel good. I like
They're the
that.
moments, though. Like, you're away from town for so long, and it's like, it's a bit of home, and AFL.
That's
it's
it.
awesome.
That's it. So I got to take. It's turning into the AFL podcast now that I said at the start.
Yeah.
I got to take a British band to the football one day, which was really great. Things like that. And every time we go into there's a place in Queensland called Lone Pine. Shout out, because they always give us free entry, and you can hold koalas and pet kangaroos. There's a whole paddock there where you can just go. So that sort of stuff, even though I've done it 40 times, it's just so great to see people who have always wanted to come here, always wanted to do that stuff, and you're just walking around kind of feeling very wholesome.
You're a dream maker, mate. You are. You're a dream maker.
Oh, stop it. Stop it. So I don't know. That's a couple of little, not only PG stories, but just regular things that always are great on tour. One thing on that, actually, I know I'm continuing on some more.
That's all right.
As people who want to go on tour, for example, say if you're people who are about to go, and you might be aware of this too, with this being, your studio.
Yep.
It goes from a point where music is your hobby to being your job.
Yep.
And being your full-time thing, and the amount of energy you put into that here for free, and then you put into earn some money. So when you have no hobbies, that's when that really affects your mental health. That's what I feel as well.
I'm right there. I'm in that point right now.
Yeah. So for me, it took me a while. Like, I did a bit of stand-up comedy. I did a bit of, tried to pick music back up and all these sort of things. And it kind of fell with football. It's following that. It's a weekly thing. It's the routine. It's knowing that teams are announced on a Thursday night. There's a game on a Saturday or Sunday.
Yep.
It's stuff that I can connect with anyone in the country. And it made me feel a lot more normal, and I can enjoy everything, the music, because I know I've got this little side thing that, hence why I've been talking about it so much the last few minutes, because I find I start talking about music too much, and then I kind of flip it back to football, because then I feel it's more on par. Everyone understands
It's
sports.
in your comfort zone kind of thing there.
Yeah, because I could
You
talk
got to
about
know how
this.
to chill out, Yeah.
Exactly right. So that's one thing. Say if you're right in that pocket, I can't really give you any answers for what to do, but it is a thing to be conscious of, because I've seen so many guys on tour go into it excited, and then partner with their partners as well, and their partners might want a different thing. For example, they're like, oh, you're away so much, or, you're not. And it's like, well, it's now a hobby into my business, and it's taking up all this time that it was only ever on the side before. So being able to balance that, those out is a really important thing to have in your back of your mind as you kind of have a side hustle.
I know exactly what you're talking about, because doing the business thing for me, it was like, I've always just liked recording music because I was only the one who could really do it.
Yep.
And I've been doing that for the last 10 years, and I just decided, while I'm here for permanent residency, let's just start the studio. So we did that from the front of our house, and now we're here in a proper recording studio. And it's like, I do need that extra thing to just keep me grounded. But the problem is I don't have time to do it.
Yep.
So my thing is video games, because we just had a big week with E3 still happening. I don't know if you guys get into that at all.
Yeah.
Big time.
It just helps you, I don't know, maintain some sense of normalcy.
Yep.
While I'm working all hours of the day, I can at least come back and maybe play Donkey Kong on the Nintendo Switch for a couple of minutes and just feel, you know what I mean? So that's that thing, is like, you need to have that balance. If what you're doing, like, what you probably didn't expect to turn it into some sort of a career now.
Not at first, no, but it's kind of when it started, when the ball got rolling, I'm like, well, this is the thing that I would do if I've had 2 hours sleep. I would love to have been passionate about accountants, being an accountant, because then I could make heaps more money, having 9 to 5, have all that routine, which sometimes I miss a little. Yeah. But I'm not that passionate about numbers. It's just this particular thing is what sparks it. So
It's what you're here for,
all
man.
right, So I just run with it. And being able to have that thing where even talking to you guys now, there's a lot of my job is like explaining what the role is, and same with when we were talking before about the differences in running a studio and whatnot.
Yeah.
So there's parallels. But if you go and talk to, the guy you're standing at the bus stop with, who might know Bon Jovi and might know 4 bands and likes music, but it's hard to explain these up and coming bands. But you go, oh mate, you're watching the footy. What's the scores? And you've automatically got a you can say the same with video games.
Common ground.
Common ground, and then that just makes you feel so much more normal and relaxed. You can walk into anywhere. You can walk into a coffee shop, and it just makes you feel less like you're on this odd own kind of when you're working for yourself or you're doing these project based things.
Yeah.
Focus less on this, and you can kind of focus a little bit out.
Good advice.
It's very well said. Very well spoken. That's good.
I think
inspirational.
It's very inspirational, man. It's that thing is like I think about this all the time. I think about my mortality. I know it's very morbid, but you really only got one shot at it. You might as well make it worthwhile.
Absolutely.
And like what you're doing is very worthwhile. And not only are you doing something for yourself, but you're giving an opportunity to people who wouldn't be able to do it without you. And I think that's a really important takeaway for this particular program is you are. I don't know if this is the right word, but you're empowering these musicians to get where they need to go. And you're not only managing their time, but you're managing their efforts from picking up a guitar as a kid and becoming a musician and trying to make a career out of that. You are that that surrogate for that particular thing for those people, and I think that's a really important thing. That there's somebody out there like you doing the same thing for musicians. It's really, really important.
Yeah.
So we cannot understate the importance of what you do.
Feels like a very big responsibility. You're saying, putting it like that, I'm like,
but it is. It is though.
Feel very
in plain terms, that's what you're doing for people. So I think it's a really good gig, and I think you are tour dad. You embody tour dad,
and not just tour dad. Now you're now podcast dad.
I'll wear that with pride.
Pod dad.
Podcast dad.
Pod dad.
Dad of the pod.
Yeah.
I dig that. Look, I think we're at the point where we're about to wrap up.
I think that's a good wrap. Yeah.
So we got anything else for this particular program? Any highlights? Any takeaways you guys want to share?
Not particularly. No.
I think we've left on a peak. So
let's leave it on that peak. We've just climbed Mount Everest. We don't want to climb down. We're at the top.
We want to enjoy the view for a little bit.
Yeah,
I don't want to climb all the way back down. It's a long way. And I'm puffed already.
Just make sure you hold the railing on your way down. Because otherwise you won't be able to tour. Well, look, that's it. That's it for episode 4. What do we want to call it? Do you want to call it Life on the Road? I think that's a good
Life on the
road. Let's play out
that's
the
cool. That works.
Or tour dad. One of those.
Tour dad
on the road. I don't know.
Life on the road with tour. I don't know. We'll figure it out.
We'll
figure it
out.
out.
You guys.
But everybody check out Jason's stuff. Reverse K on reversek.com, Reverse K Touring on Instagram, and Reverse K on Facebook. Follow along. I'll friend you on Facebook and I'll follow along with your journey because I'm really interested in what you do just in general. Just as a musician, it's part of the process, man. And
That's
I think
right.
we got to respect the process. So thanks for watching on YouTube. Thanks for listening on SoundCloud and iTunes and Stitcher, available everywhere where podcasts are done. Leave us a review on iTunes. Let us know how we're doing. Got any suggestions? Let us know. Follow us along at Live Room Podcast, or as Big Ted likes to say,
the Liver Podcast.
Liver Podcast. Instagram, Facebook. Just share it out. Let us know how you feel. Give some comments. I'd like to know some feedback. There's a lot of people listening at home.
Yeah.
Funnily enough.
Yeah.
I FaceTime with my parents probably once a week or so. And one of my mother's coworkers, my mother works at Dollar Tree.
Yep.
Just as something to do, you know what I mean? Because she's in her 50s now. My younger brother's in high school. She's got to do something. So one of her coworkers from Dollar Tree actually listens. So there you go.
Shout out.
Yes.
Amazing.
So there you go. So
whereabouts are you folks? You did mention.
Central Square, New York.
Yep.
Do you know where that is?
Not specifically, but I know where New York is. So we're kind of narrowing down.
Do you know Syracuse?
Oh, it's more upstate, isn't it?
Yes. So that's about 15 minutes, 20 minutes north of Syracuse. So
Yep.
if you are going to Rochester if you're going to Rochester from Albany, I think you're going to be taking 61. I can't remember. It's been actually a couple of years now. But you're going west.
Yep.
And that's how you get from Albany to Rochester from that point. So yeah, well there you go. A little bit of common ground. I always try and relate to people who have been to the States.
Of course.
Have you been?
I actually saw brand new in Rochester, and it was supported by Modern Baseball on the front bottoms. And it was the best day because I went to some diner that Barack Obama had eaten at, and there was a record store next door, and there was a liquor store next door.
Did you go to House of Guitars?
No, I didn't, because I didn't want to spend the money because I knew I couldn't. Stayed away. I thought about it, but I just stayed away. But and it was fall, so it was like right in that peak fall where that whole. Anyway, I could.
Beautiful.
It was just an incredible day, and the show was great. And I peed my pants outside the hotel because I couldn't find my key. So
there you go.
What a night.
I'm going to leave it on that.
What a night.
Well, let's leave it on the fact that Jason peed his pants. Thanks again, everybody, for watching and listening. And we'll see you again next time on the Live Room Podcast.
Let's do it. Let's see you next time.
Woo! Yeah. There you go. Bye. Cool.
As I launched into that story, I went, this story ends with me peeing my pants out of the hotel.
At least we got a funny story at the end.
Oh.